And gentlemen, welcome to the CryptoCannaVerse, a globally inclusive podcast that serves as a hub for visionary entrepreneurs operating at the intersection of four key domains: Christ, crypto, cannabis, and CPAs. We help grow, educate, and inspire within these four C's, and we also connect founders with investors, advisors, and partnerships. All faiths are welcome. Today's show is hosted by myself, Crystal Wampler, and we have an amazing guest co-host, Jackie Meyer, CPA, CEO, and founder of Tax Plan IQ, a SaaS company, software company for tax advisors. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Crystal. I'm so glad to be here. It's such a pleasure. I'm excited to get going.
Wonderful. Jackie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Tax Plan IQ?
Sure. So Tax Plan IQ is what I would call a cutting edge SaaS software designed specifically for tax advisors. It includes a comprehensive library of over 100 educational strategies, ensuring that tax advisors are always up to date with the latest tax laws and regulations. But what really sets us apart is the ROI method of pricing that I developed, which allows value pricing to work up front to taxpayers and also demonstrates the annual return on investment to the client. And so that method has really been a game changer to our profession. I won't say industry because accountants get mad at that word, but it really does show the real value of strategic planning. And so our commitment to innovation and excellence was recognized this year. We were selected by the AICPA in their accelerator cohort. Thank you so much. It was such a blessing. And in addition, I'm a passionate coach to accountants as well. And so I have the privilege of speaking and consulting with tens of thousands of professionals each year around whether tax technical training or workaholism and peaceful entrepreneurship. So I've got a vast array of skills, but you can learn more about me at jackie.cpa or follow me on any of the socials, Jackie Meyer CPA.
Thank you so much for being here today and sharing with us. We are booked through April 24. If you would like to be a guest speaker or learn about the companies on the show, please reach out to crystal@canethics.com. Today's show is being live broadcast across many social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and we have a total following of 10,000. Our strategic network includes venture capital firms, family offices, blockchain and crypto hedge funds, business owners, Web3 launchpads, CPAs, attorneys, serving high net worth clientele, investors, and angel investors. We are so excited for today's guest speaker. The CryptoCannaVerse show presents speaker Daniel Hood, editor-in-chief of Accounting Today, Friday, November 10th, 2023. Daniel Hood has been editor-in-chief of Accounting Today since 2011. He joined Accounting Today as managing editor in 1998, a graduate of Georgetown University. He has also served as a business editor for the New York Daily News and as a production editor for the Wall Street Journal in Europe. He is the author of 5 novels and a guidebook to New York City. Welcome, Daniel.
Thanks for having me.
We are so excited for you being here today. Can you tell us, how did you get into writing and being involved in that?
Purely by accident. I actually started as a production person, more of a layout and design. And there was a point where, because of desktop publishing and sort of computer revolution of the 90s, where those two things intersected, and they're like, well, you know how to lay out pages and you know how to spell, so we'll make you an editor. And it was really by accident, and I sort of fell into that and fell into covering accounting very much by accident, just sort of looking for a job. And there was an opening at Accounting Today, and I took it, and I've stayed ever since.
Nice. Can you tell our viewers, most people know what Accounting Today is, but can you tell our viewers a little bit about what Accounting Today is?
Sure, absolutely. We sort of think of ourselves as the newspaper of record of accounting, even though we're not a newspaper anymore because no one reads newspapers. But we're sort of we have a website that sort of covers everything you need to know about accounting, from the latest news from the IRS to the latest disciplinary actions of the PCAOB. But we also cover a lot of practice management things about how to run your practice better, how to recruit and retain people, how to find clients, all kinds of things about having a more successful accounting practice. We also we do still have a monthly print magazine, but most of our focus is online. We also do a ton of webinars. We have a podcast ourselves. We have a bunch of virtual events. We just finished one up earlier this month. We've got another one coming in December, and we've got a regular annual conference that we host every May.
Yeah, I'm actually, that's a mouthful. You guys do a lot. I actually attended your last conference for Accounting Today in San Diego, and it was absolutely amazing. And that's where I actually met you for the first time. And, one of the topics was how important it is to niche down. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. This is one of those things of the ongoing changes that are sort of washing over accounting sort of broadly. There's so much change going on in the field. And one particular thing we're seeing is the fact that a lot of the sort of bedrock bread and butter compliance-based work that accounting firms do, the tax prep, the bookkeeping, and so on, a lot of that is getting commoditized in one way or another, either by perception, right? The perception on the part of clients that this work is, it's just done by computers. You push a button and the computer does it. Now, we all know that's not true, but to a certain extent, more and more, the threat is that it kind of is a little bit true. And even if it isn't, the clients perceive it that way. So what we're seeing is a lot of firms feeling the need, or at least being, the perception is that there is this need to up your game and to change how you operate as an accounting firm, as opposed to being sort of a generalist one-stop shop for anybody who will come along. The idea is that you want to become much more specialized. You want to focus on a niche audience, and one of the reasons you want to do that is because it deepens your expertise to the point where you're able to deliver value to clients in a much more specific way that you aren't sort of able to deliver to a broad audience, right? If you work with a million different kinds of businesses, the likelihood of your being able to be a real expert in any one of those businesses is much lower. Whereas if you focus on one or two industry lines or types of client, because your niches can also be individuals as well. If you focus on a specific type, you can go super deep. You may be narrow, but you're diving deep into the sorts of things that matter to that client, whether it's a business line, bakeries, for instance, or light manufacturers, or whatever the case may be, or individuals. And some people will have a serious niche in, high net worth families, or high net worth families that also own businesses, or there's a million different niches. And the notion is that you can develop a set of expertise that cannot be matched by, say, technology or AI or technology-enabled competitors who don't bring the expertise of an accountant, but may try to make up for that with their technology, their sort of augmentation by technology. So it's a chance for accountants to say, listen, we really know what you need. We really know what you want. We're able to focus very deeply on it. It also makes it more interesting work for the accountant, right? You're not trying to be a jack of all trades for a million different businesses or a million different types of clients. You're focusing deeply and narrowly on one particular area, which means you become an expert. Being an expert is, it's more fun than being a generalist, I think, for a lot of people. That was a lot. So I'll pause for a second to take a breath. And I don't know if Bill, I don't know if you look like you've got a question there.
Yeah, first I'm going to review the answer to that last question. So I'm going to need about 20 minutes. And then, no, I'm kidding you. I agree with what you're saying. The sales pitch that accountants have had is, this is a widget. Whatever you're selling is a widget. And the same dynamics occur whether you're selling firearms, chewing gum, aerospace chemicals. It's still a widget. And the number one objection that I've heard as a salesperson and I've made to professionals is, you don't understand my business. And I don't want to pay you to understand it. So I completely agree. I think where accounting has to go is niching down, and then more of those trusted advisor services, as opposed to just pure tax prep.
Yeah, Daniel, wasn't it like, what was the percentage if someone was niching down? Didn't they have like a percentage of how much more your revenue would be if you actually niche down in the accounting industry?
Oh yeah, and this is terrible because I can never remember that number because it grows all the time, but it's a significant multiple, right? And it depends on the niche. And I always, like I said, I always forget the exact number. So I'm not going to say it because then people will say, well, it's actually 27%, not 23%, but it is significant. That you're absolutely right. It's a big multiple. And the thing is to Bill, to your point, you're absolutely right. You go to somebody and say, I work with 100 other bakeries. I always use bakeries as an example. It's a terrible example because there aren't that many bakeries.
There's a lot of dough in that.
There's a lot of let's make this bread. But there's
muffin wrong.
See, we're going to be here for days. We need to get that FCC buzzer for Bill.
Sorry, I was too crusty. I was too crusty.
You're the upper crust of commentators here. But any way you slice it, this is an important thing for accounting firms to think about, is that they're narrowly focused, because it's not a generalist service. And you can say, listen, I work with 50 other car dealerships. Now you got to get a bunch of car dealership puns. I'll let you work on those, Bill. But if you know that detail, you can come in and you bring added value, right? You're bringing expertise in their industry that they don't have. And as Bill said, no one wants to pay somebody to come in and learn their business. They want you to come in knowing their business, and more importantly, they don't want you to come in knowing all the other businesses they're competing with, because then they know that you're bringing. And it's not about stealing trade secrets or anything like that, but it's about understanding the universe in which they operate, all their suppliers, the types of suppliers they work with, the types of supply chain where they work with, the marketing things that work for them that don't work for other industries, the staffing issues and the staffing solutions that work for them that don't work for other industries. So you bring that extra expertise. And I will say that if you're going to go for a niche strategy, which generally most people think you should, you need to pair it with a recognition that you're bringing more value than you did when you were a generalist, sort of once, will serve anybody kind of thing. You are bringing more value, unless you should charge more for that, right? You should be comfortable saying, listen, you can't get this anywhere else. You can go to any other CPA you want. They're not going to deliver this value that I'm bringing. And I'm sorry, because I moderate a lot of webinars, I keep wanting to go, hey, do you want to jump in on this? So I don't want to jump all over. You're in charge here, Crystal, so I don't want to stop. But I was going to call on Rory, and I'm like, it's not my job. I'm just supposed to yell.
No, you're doing
Can
amazing.
I speak,
please
Crystal?
We're all leaving. By the way, you auto talk about the car industry.
Oh boy,
that's you had like 10 minutes to come up with. That's what you got.
You probably use
right
ChatGPT.
I don't car much for it. Okay,
Dan, I'd love to have you comment
It's
on.
all right. Bill's been dealing over there.
I heard that. We heard that. Good work.
good one.
Dan, I'd love to have you comment on the recent M&A activity. Recently, Bergen KDV, $100 million accounting firm, got bought by Creative Planning. We're seeing this integrated model start being adopted by more and more firms. And I'm writing a book called The Holistic Guide to Wealth Management for Accounting Professionals, talking just about going deeper with clients using personal financial planning as a way to have more meaningful relationships. Like Jackie software, tax savings, like value-based pricing, that people love that. They want the here and now savings. But to go deeper with that business owner who you have intimate knowledge with is so important. And then map out a financial plan that can give them an outlook for 30 years down the road, to really tie into these worlds, both the accounting and the wealth management side, to provide for the many needs of that client.
Absolutely. Well, this is part of, this is the thing we have to recognize about the vast majority of businesses in this country, right, are small businesses, which means they're owned by often very small groups of owners, families, often just individuals. They come with specific needs, right? They come with that need they have, I almost call them weird. They're not weird financial planning needs, but they're very unusual compared to the vast majority of clients who don't own their own businesses, right? You can do their taxes. You can work with them even on financial planning, but it's a different set of issues than for a business owner. And so if you're going to serve them, if you're going to niche down to them, you understand all the issues of their business, but you also understand the issues around their wealth and how they want to transfer that to a second generation, because it comes with the issues of ownership and management transition to a next generation, where accountants bring that extra expertise that a lot of financial planners may not have. They can help. They're super competent in a lot of financial planning issues, but what do they know about running a business? What do they know about transferring a business to the next generation? What do they know about exit planning and succession planning? So it's a huge part of what we're seeing. At least a lot more firms are adopting wealth management in that context of we're serving the whole client. and we're able to go deeper even than just knowing their business. We also know their personal lives and their financial issues and the things they need to know about that. So I think you're absolutely right.
I call it the financial flywheel, and I quote Ron Baker all the time. He talks about serving people from womb to tomb. So that kid's born, you start that 529 plan, you help the person start their business, grow their business, have a succession plan, do the estate planning, liquidity event, then manage those assets. You're really taking care of that full life cycle of the client.
Yep.
Yeah. Daniel, I'm curious, has Accounting Today done studies on the profitability of the different niches? Because I've done my own studies, and I personally believe that tax advisory is the most profitable. Have you seen that spectrum of service offerings and where the profitability really lies?
We haven't done any studies on profitability, so I want to see yours. I'm excited to hear about that.
So rare for some reason. In an industry all about numbers, we have so few about ourselves, right?
Well, this goes back. My favorite thing about this was that up until literally, I want to say it's now at this point because COVID has messed with my sense of time, but it's probably 8 years ago because it was really 3 years before COVID, and then that just gets stripped out. But up until the last decade, no one knew how many CPAs there were in the country. Like you could ask anybody and they were like, we don't know. I don't know. 10, at least 10, maybe as many as 1 million. I don't know. And they literally, someone had to go and count, and it took them like a year to figure out. So where the numbers are, who knows? It is bizarre that a profession based on numbers can't even count itself.
Do we know the metrics on CPAs? Do you have that figure?
It is now when last they counted, and it's obviously, well, I was going to say, obviously it's gone up except that there's a pipeline problem, but it's somewhere between 660 and 680,000. At the time, their number was, and this is creepy, was around 666,000. Wait.
There's just something so perfect about that.
Yeah, right? Statista has that number on Google. When you search it, that comes up, I think, first or second on articles.
Yes, not a happy number, but it's growing, so we're not going to be there anymore. But in terms of profitability, we like I said, we don't track that. So I'd love to see your numbers on it. What we do track is where top 100 firms regularly report growth, not the numbers that they're reporting, but just that they're seeing growth there. Tax advisory is certainly in there. It's high up there, and it gets tied in with estate planning and gift planning and all those sorts of things. I would say that a lot of what matters around you're absolutely right. The tax advisory is up there. There are 3 or 4 other ones that are up there as well. But I would say the main thing is, and I keep going back to this, Rory, you mentioned Ron Baker, it's how you price it. You can make a lot of these advisory services and a lot of these niche specialties. You can make them much more profitable than your regular services just in how you price yourself. And that's the real trick. Tax advisory is nice because it often comes with a clear result. Like, here you go. I saved you
ROI, right?
Quantifiable,
I saved you $100,000. I should get 10% of that. Or something. It's very easy. I mean, we want to be careful about promising that kind of stuff, but it should be right. It's an easy thing to point to. You can say, I saved you money. And I can point to exactly how much I saved you. So that's it. That's super helpful. But a lot of it really comes down to being convinced of your own worth and being comfortable going to the client and saying, yep, I'm worth a lot more than you've been paying me. And a lot of times they'll be like, yes, you are. Sure. We just didn't want to pay. So,
just to jump in, how do you think client accounting services, fractional CFO, like that part of the business factors into this greater idea of proving value?
In a bunch of different ways. It's cash is right. It's the obvious, the 800-pound gorilla going on now because it's so hugely successful. It's also pretty varied in terms of what it is. What is CAS? Nobody knows. Everyone has a different definition. We don't even all agree what the C and the A and the S stand for.
Right.
But well, actually, we agree on the C and the S. To be fair, we're 2/3 of the way there.
Yeah, not the A though.
The A, nobody even knows. It could be
that fight has been had once or twice.
Is it advisory? Is it accounting? Is it architecture?
Never CAS and tell.
Well, Twilight just rebranded collaborative accounting. I actually like that.
That is pretty good. I like that.
But isn't that kind of the problem is that we all have a different definition of these things? Like we do need some conformity when it comes to our profession and like what we're all that.
And I do think there is that that's coming. The consensus is coming around CAS, and where it varies. I think it's mostly at the margins, right? We call it. We're confusing people by calling it different names. Eventually, we'll settle on a name. Collaborative accounting is pretty interesting, but we want to emphasize the advisory part of it, and that's where this comes back to this niche issue. Is that the most successful CAS practices for a long time, the most successful CAS practices were the ones that got in first and were smart and were nimble, and that played out. And I think that first mover advantage, those firms remain really strong and will for a long time. But I think what we're starting to realize is it is less about just being there first and being the first person to go to your clients and say, hey, I can do your books online and we'll get them all taken care of, and then I'll give you some advice, and more about taking that and focusing it on, again, specific industries, being like, I'm CAS for car dealerships, I'm CAS for solar manufacturers, I'm CAS for a specific, again, that specific niche. Because really the thing about CAS is that the only way it works is if it's standardized and productized, and you can deliver it repeatedly to large numbers of people. And the value there is really going to come from two things, right? It's that standardization, and standardization comes from deeply knowing who you're serving. And if you've got to sort of be like, well, I've got to individualize and personalize my CAS services for every type of industry that I come across, right? That's not going to work. So you need to say, I'm super productized and standardized around this specific niche. And that's where I think that's one of the big next steps in CAS, in addition to a move towards more focus on advisory services. The other thing will be that niching and upgrading their advisory offerings to focus on specific industries. And many are already doing it, I should say.
Hold on one second. Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, I think Rory was first, though.
Okay, Roy?
I'm going to ask Dan which one he wants to answer. Do you want to answer the private equity question, or do you want to answer the pipeline problem question?
Ooh. Do we have at least 3 days? I need at least 3 days for the pipeline. And
well, let's do private equity then.
Kidding.
Right. So, obviously they've come into the profession. They see the opportunity. I see, obviously, the ability to have a coupon play and a growth play. And, I've interviewed Alan Colton, Bob Lewis, and they talk about all the strategics that are potentially entering the space, large family offices, potentially tech companies. So maybe you have just some commentary on, private equity's involvement and what you're seeing also from the firm side, and also why private equity's so attractive to the accounting profession.
Right. So I'm going to start with that last bit first. There's a lot there, because there's a lot going on. And to clarify, when you say it's so attractive to the profession, do you mean why private equity is attracted? Attracted to the profession. So I'll just start there, because it's easy. We get to. I'm not an accountant, but I play well on TV, so we get to pat ourselves in the back and say the accounting profession is attractive for a bunch of different reasons. One, it has it currently has some potential upside, right? It
has Dan Hood's face. That's why it's so attractive.
It's generally full of attractive people. But it's attractive for people who like money for a bunch of reasons. First and foremost, accountants make money all the time. And they when times are bad, accountants make money. When times are good, accountants make more money. And we saw this throughout the pandemic. Accounting firms, when other businesses were going out of business or closing down or laying off, getting small, accounting firms did great. They had a fantastic COVID. And so people are looking at it and going, that's recurring revenue that just comes no matter what happens. This doesn't mean the accountant can't have bad times. It does once in a while, but much less so than everybody else, because everybody needs those services. You always got to have a tax return. Always got to have your books done. And when times are bad, you want advice, right? So the more accountants position themselves as that trusted advisor, the more people are going to say, well, I need some help getting through tough times, so I'll pay my accountant. So there's that regular thing, and that's when you talk about some of the other people coming into the practice. I've coming into the area along with private equity, and I've heard Alan Colton and Bob Lewis both talk about what happens in 5 years when PE starts to sell its stake. Can they sell it to retirement funds? Right? Does CalPERS look at this and go, what, this is fantastic? They spin off. Yeah, sovereign wealth funds are a great example as well. This is a group of people who spin off money in good times and bad. They are a great part of our portfolio. They're not necessarily delivering the huge returns, but they're consistent. They're kind of like a bond, or they're an annuity, right? They're a regular.
Yeah, so it's a coupon play and a growth play.
Exactly, and that's the second half, is the growth play, right? Is that people are looking at accounting and going, you know what? They don't charge enough money for what they do. People value their services.
They don't have the ROI method,
right? They don't charge properly. There's a lot of
best advocate over here for the ROI method.
You showed me the ROI method on an Excel spreadsheet, and I was like, "This is unbelievable."
It should be a no-brainer, right? I mean, it's like, why are we not doing this? Yeah, but no. Okay, back to you, Daniel.
but this is a perfect example. You're absolutely right. Why aren't we doing these things? Why aren't we specifically that? Why aren't we doing the ROI method? But also specifically, more broadly, why aren't we charging our clients more? Why aren't we more efficient in our billing? Why aren't we doing a lot of things? And why aren't we starting to move to these higher value services, or move more quickly to the higher value services that we know we can deliver, even if we're not necessarily comfortable delivering them? And that's one of the big hangups. So they're looking and saying, well, there's a huge untapped demand for these services that accounting firms offer. And so the potential for growth is enormous. And so that's the attractiveness part. I would say, and this is sort of my takeaway on PE, is that most firms will never get anywhere near a PE firm. They will never see any PE money. They will never be in talks with a PE firm, right? The vast majority of accounting firms won't touch them, just because what's happening is the PE firms, generally speaking, there's some exceptions, but generally speaking, what they're doing is they're buying one accounting firm and then saying, now you go buy a bunch of accounting firms. And so it's really just starts to look like regular old M&A. Now there's some obvious things in terms of people who join those firms, and particularly partners who join those firms. Their pay structure is going to look different. Their retirement structure is going to look different, stuff like that. And in some cases, those are very attractive options to accountants, right? Because they're a little bit different in terms of how you have to worry about getting paid out, which is for you don't. Alan always describes the sort of standard accounting firm model, right, as an unfunded Ponzi scheme. And if you're working for one of those PE companies, you're sort of out of that Ponzi scheme because there's money available, or hopefully you're out of the Ponzi scheme. It may be a totally different Ponzi scheme, but at least you're out of the one that you sort of know of. But most firms will never be in either set of that. They weren't not going to be the initial platform firm, and they're not going to be one of the other firms that get bought up, because there are 44,000 roughly accounting firms in the country, and the number of firms, if you sort of spec it out and say, well, how many PE firms do we expect to come into this space, and how many firms are they going to buy, and then how many firms are those firms going to buy? I find it very hard to get beyond something like 400. And that's back of the napkin. I mean, it could be as high as 1,000, but even still, that leaves 43,000 firms that will never get involved with private equity in any way. Sorry, Crystal, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just have a quick question. How do you see CPAs working with estate planners and doing estate planning nowadays? And please comment. And then I would also like to hear from the other CPAs on how they're handling estate planning as well.
Some of that depends on the size of the firm. I think a lot of firms are upping their own estate planning capabilities, but a lot of times we're seeing them. What we're seeing proactive accountants try to do is become sort of the quarterback of that financial team, where you work more closely with estate planners and lawyers and insurance agents and half a dozen other sort of professional services providers, and you are sort of guiding it, right? So you're sort of saying you need to go talk to an estate planner. When you talk to the estate planner comes back with these recommendations, and maybe as the accountant, you get the client to act on those recommendations, whatever they may be, to get the document set up, get the trust set up, get whatever needs to be actually literally put in place. Maybe you're connecting with the estate planner with the lawyer to say, hey, you guys need to get this paperwork together so that they will sign it, so that I can put it in, my client's file, and we all know that they're all set. And then when I go over their financials at the end of the year, I can say, finally, after 5 years of saying you should be doing X, I can say, yes, you've finally done X. So we're seeing sort of proactive firms doing that a lot, becoming sort of not the boss of the estate
quarterback.
But the quarterback, because the estate planner would be like,
Dan, did you read my book before? Dan, did you get an early copy of my book?
I've been sneaking into your office late at night, Rory. I got to be honest. This is time to come clean. I have put a backdoor in your computer.
Just to point out, there is a joke here about the accountant who wanted the refund. So we said, get that quarterback. Sorry, I just came up with that.
We should.
I actually like to call it the concierge way instead of quarterback way, right? And so, being that concierge accountant can really be the manager of all the different people involved and transactions involved, and make sure that everyone's communicating and whatnot. But yeah, that's where I completely agree with Daniel. I think that you cannot be everything. And if you're trying to be a financial planner now, the accountant, the estate planner, you're going to get back into this weird generalist role that where you don't have any niche that you can really shine in. And today AI might be a bonus, but literally tomorrow it's going to be the like expected thing baseline out of every firm out there. And the people behind it, like you and I, are the ones that are going to be the bonus with what we can bring to the table on top of that. Right. Yeah. So I think it's really important to continue to niche down and then work with really other smart people that are going to surround you and the client and up that value.
Real quickly, maybe I want to have Dan comment on AI, but I want to ask Jackie about how you're utilizing AI within Tax Plan IQ. You know, I know there's a bunch of estate planning technologies out there, wealth.com, who I partner with. They're using AI to read prior estate plans and give recommendations. Mm-hmm. So can you talk about how you're utilizing AI in Tax Plan IQ? And then I want to serve it up to Dan to talk about, AI in the profession.
Awesome. Yeah. So with Tax Plan IQ, we have a chatbot based on GPT-4, which is like, the most latest version of natural language processing out there. And her name is Jane, Jaine. Nice. And we have combined all of our consulting knowledge, coaching knowledge, tax, technical, and planning that we have in and outside of the software. And we've put them into Jane, so to speak, which is an odd thing to say, but you know what I mean? And you can interact with her, brainstorm tax strategies. Any day now, actually, she will be reading tax returns. We're testing that as we speak, reading any tax return from any tax prep software and suggesting strategies for the accountant as well. So there is a lot happening in that area, and it is so exciting because it enables us bootstrapped small companies to have access to the same kind of stuff that big corporations were paying hundreds of millions of dollars to do just a year, 2 years ago. And so it's really neat.
Very cool. That's very cool stuff. So is this a local, like your own limited instance of ChatGPT 4 or?
Yeah. So, we have like our proprietary model, so it doesn't share out any information, gotcha. But it's the baseline data is GPT-4, and then we layered our education on top of it. Right. And then people can interact with her within the SaaS software platform.
Cool. I just say because people, this is one of those things that I only recently realized, but if you're in basic ChatGPT 4, the sort of public version of it, don't put any information in it, because whatever you put in there ends up belonging to OpenAI. Right. But yeah, that's why I was assuming it would be your own instance of it. But yeah, but it's one of those things where I think a lot of people don't, particularly individuals at firms, don't necessarily realize that anything you put in there is becomes sort of public property, and you want to be aware of that, because obviously you can't put any client data in it, but which is too bad, because just as you're pointing out, right, when you could start putting tax returns in there in a safe way, as you're doing, the amount of information you'll be able to get out of that is just crazy. And that's the real trick there, is to make sure that you are the people operating the AI. And I think that's the big thing, because otherwise AI will be just doing it on its own, or other people will be using AI to deliver those services. And well, sure, I'm not a CPA, but I've got the most powerful AI in the world behind me. My AI, your accountant has seen, probably somewhere around, let's say 10,000 in tax returns. My AI has seen 10 million. And is able to sift through all that. Right. So, I mean, it's one of those things where accountants want to be in the position of using AI and publicizing that and say, listen, we use the latest tools because they're hugely helpful, but we're in charge, and you need us to get the value of the AI, as opposed to some other guy who's just happened to have a bunch of AI, behind him. Because the tools are so powerful that they're going to let a lot of people pretend to be experts that they're not.
Right.
As a businessman, Daniel, I'm buying your eye. I can put my expenses up into AI and say, I'm spending 3% on tires. Is that normal for a distribution company? But then I'm buying your eye. Then I want your experience. I want some of the gray hair to say, look, I've seen these deals go. I've seen this thing happen. I'm putting you back in trusted advisor. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention is the reason people don't niche down, which is really the answer to marketing. And I've come from marketing, obviously not accounting, is they're so afraid to lose a deal. So someone comes and say, we're a biotech company. Can you handle us? And no, I can't. I actually can't. I don't understand biotech. I'll never understand it. I could probably count
So
the
you're saying accountants are too ethical for their own good.
It's always been the problem.
Yeah, but they don't want to do it. And the example I always like to refer to, always, is Colt 45, which I grew up with, which was the first beer ever positioned at Black people. And all the breweries said, you guys are nuts. This is never going to work. You know, Black people are 13.6% of the population here. It was a streaming success, but they only position the brand that way. And it's the same thing with accounting, as you had been talking about before. So if you're going into AI, my feeling is that going to be a moniker? Right? We use AI to compare you. We use AI to, or not.
I think it can be. I don't know how long. This is one of those things that it's impossible to see back past a few years with AI because we don't know what it's going to become. But I think absolutely that it's that's going to be a thing you're going to need to be able to say, or want to be able to say, is that among the things we do is bring these sort of AI enabled insights and advice to you. But again, it's the point of saying that we're in control. We're bringing it to you. We know how to use these. We are experts in using AI to serve you. We're combining its expertise with our own expertise because they're bringing different forms of expertise, right? There's the whole fuzzy thinking and fuzzy logic that goes on in the human head that AI is not yet able to reproduce. And there's the whole element of understanding how people want to be dealt with and how people want to be talked to and what people are prepared to be advised to do that AI, at least not yet. And I think probably will maybe in 20 years, but it will take a lot longer for it to become good at
normal.
At walking a young business owner through all the intricacies of figuring out what their legacy is going to be, in a financial planning sense, right? It's going to take a lot longer for AI to figure out how to be comfortable doing that and saying that stuff to a young business owner or an old business owner or the surviving spouse of a business owner who's passed away, who suddenly finds themselves with all these issues. It is going to take a lot longer for AI to be comfortable walking those people through their financial and business positions than it is for it.
But I was just going to say, there's one other aspect to this as well, and Daniel, you hit on this before, the pipeline issue. And so I think there's a general expectation from this next generation of either accountants or potential accountants that we will be utilizing this type of technology. And this is the type of stuff that can draw the right talent back into the pool. And it's the same thing with, you mentioned crypto on the blockchain, cannabis, which, by the way, you interviewed me about several years ago, which is really fun. I was just going back in time. Just a funny flashback, but those are the type of things that are very exciting and can hopefully address this issue of attracting younger talent, at least.
Yep. Well, and this is one of my favorite descriptions ever, because this is true. It's not just true of the sexy technology, right? It's not just true of the cryptos and the blockchains and the AI. It's true of like basic things like how many screens do you have, and how my favorite description of it, and this was from before blockchain and before crypto and before, was you don't want your staff to come into the office and feel like they've gone in a time machine backwards. If they look at the technology that's on their desk and it's worse or less advanced than the technology they have in their pocket or on their kitchen table at home, right? That's a trouble, particularly for the rising generations. And we already have enough trouble filling that pipeline that you don't want them to come in and be like, wow, this is a great desktop computer you have here with one screen and a cathode ray monitor kind of thing. But done right. And then on the flip side, if it's done right, it's exciting, right? You can be a plus, like come in and work. You will be, not only we will make you do the interesting part of accounting work, the advisory and helping people build their businesses and plan for their futures and that sort of stuff. But we're also going to give you the absolute latest tools, because accounting really this is one of those things that people don't talk enough about in terms of accounting, but the profession really is on the cutting edge of a lot of technology. The absolute cutting edge. We'll go ahead and say it's on the bleeding edge of a lot of technologies. It's just it's all proprietary stuff that's internal, in many cases, to the big four. But it's still they're out there using it all the time, and it's very quickly nowadays trickling down much more quickly to firms that are interested in it than it used to. The problem is there aren't as many firms interested in it as there should be. But
go ahead. Oh, sorry, Dan. I have a couple comments that might really scare the audience, but I was at AICPA Thought Leader Symposium a couple months ago, and a futurist from OpenAI spoke to us. And he said by 2030, we'll have AGI, not to be confused with adjusted gross income, but artificial generating its own intelligence kind of thing, right? It training itself. He thinks that's going to happen in the next 7 years. He thinks most of us alive today might be able to live forever. I can't even get my head wrapped around that one. But yeah, and then I spoke to a business owner last week, and he said he was about to fire his accountant. Y'all want to know why? Because he could tell his accountant when they met for his monthly financial meeting was not using AI. And it was a complete waste of his time because he wanted that bonus stuff that AI is going to bring to the table with that trusted advisor layered on top of it. And I was like, wow, this is already happening. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Scary.
You know where AI is going. It's going to be less called AI and more called what you're already using. So every one of you is already using AI. If you have a Netflix account, that's AI. They know you liked Godfather. They're recommending Goodfellas. It's kind of like blockchain. It's the same thing. Blockchain, every one of you is in blockchain and you may not know it because it's under the hood. So if you own Ford stock, Amazon stock, Apple stock, Microsoft, you're buying into blockchain companies. You're using blockchain. And so AI is going to go under the hood. We're not going to call it a specialty the same way. It's just going to be part of regular doing business. I don't know. You have to be a little older than some of the people on this call, but maybe you remember the term internet companies in the early 90s, right? Well, now every company is an internet company.
Right. Yeah, and it is. I mean, a lot of those tools are going to get baked right into everything. You know, it's when people used to say, "Oh, you got to learn HTML." Who knows HTML now? It just gets built in, and now it's super easy stuff to use. And a lot of that is going to get built in. I do think that the one thing, and I think that's certainly true for blockchain, and I think it's true for a lot of other things. I will say for the one thing I would say about AI is that I think we're going to see AI remain above. You know, it's going to remain differentiated in certain ways because it is. In the same way. Think of it this way: in the same way that Google remains differentiated, right? We don't just go online and say, you know, I'm just looking stuff up and I don't know what search engine. When you go to Google, we know it's Google because it's a specific, there's things you take to Google. There's ways you use Google that you don't use any other tool. I mean, there are other search engines I know, but I mean, I'm sure there are some others. I don't use anybody. Nobody uses them. I mean, I think AI in different forms is going to remain separate that way in the sense of you're going to go to AI for specific things. I need to do an analysis of this. So I'm going to, it may not be ChatGPT, it may be, and it may just, somebody may come over and it'll look like Google, but it'll be ChatGPT instead. And you put in a query, say, here's a bunch of data from a client company. You know, how close to collapse are they? Or what would we tweak? What would be the 4 best things to tweak to boost their cash flow or something like that, and you give it to AI for an analysis. So I think there's a lot of AI getting built into every tool that you use. Bill, to your point, right? It's the thing that powers your recommendations, or it's the thing that recognizes all the things in your bank record, where they're supposed to go and how they get reconciled and all that sort of stuff. But then there's a higher level of AI, I think, that is going to remain separate, where I go to it for answers. I go to it for suggestions for strategies to take to clients. So I think there will be a little bit of it that remains sort of, if it's 90% of the iceberg is underwater, I think there will be 10% that remains above, and it's going to be important for accountants to Jackie, to your point, to bring that to clients. And in some cases, it's going to be a marketing thing, right? Because everybody's going to need to be using it. But you just want to make sure that people know you're using it, and that you're saying, listen, look at all the power I'm bringing to advising you. Look at all the brain power that I'm bringing to advising. I'm leaving no stone unturned to give you value.
Yeah.
If I hired any one of you people right now in one of my businesses, it wouldn't be to add numbers and calculate net present value. I wouldn't. That would just be too low a use of your time. You know, I would talk to Clayton and say, look, I got to leave my kid $2 million. How do I not pay a lot of taxes on it? As opposed to, please add this up for me, which quite frankly can be done for automated.
Yep.
Rory, did you have a comment?
I do have a thought. I do have a thought. Well, many thoughts, Jackie.
That's a
So,
line about
yeah.
if he had a thought, it would die of loneliness. We don't want you to just have one. You want to have.
So I'm a behavioral financial advisor. It's a fancy word, right? But what it is really it's human first financial guidance. So I believe in the future, and Jackie talked about it. AI is going to do a lot of the work, as we just stated here. It's going to spit out a tax return, spit out a tax plan, an estate plan, insurance, right? Your retirement. I just had on Philip Hecker, who is the CEO of Bento Engine. And he talked about there's a study by the Federal Reserve of Atlanta that talked about Social Security. And 90% of the population should wait to file, and only 10% do so. And we're looking at median figures of 180,000. The upper quartile is 272,000, I think. The top 1% or 600,000. So it's identifying those opportunities through many of these software platforms that can show, hey, I need to withhold, filing for Social Security. It's going to save me X amount of dollars. So the machine's going to do a lot of that work. And then going back to behavioral finance, it's really having that shared human experience, connecting people on a deeper level. We could talk about holistic well-being. So not just financial, occupational, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, looking at our whole life, as well as our values, because our decisions are dictated by our values. Our values shape our goals shape our behaviors, and then in turn, our behaviors will reflect our values. So AI will take a lot of the work on, but people still want to do business with a person who's an actual human. It's being able to communicate the value proposition to that person.
And so it's that communication thing, right? If you're not comfortable holding off to get your Social Security, right? That's the thing. If you wait 5 years, the value goes up enormously. It's ridiculous. But who feels comfortable doing that? So well, how will I feed myself?
I don't know.
Does that mean I have to keep working through to then? So well, no, you could bridge the gap with this, or you can figure out these solutions, or maybe you work a little longer, but think how much more you save or how much more you're able to do. And it's that communication and the comfort level is going to be huge. I think you're right.
Yeah.
So Dan, I have to take advantage of this opportunity to ask you a question about, the vast years that you've been with us in this profession.
Hundreds.
Yeah, so many. What has evolved that you've been very pleased to see happen? And what has not evolved that shocks you or dismays you when it comes to the accounting profession?
Wow, there's a lot. One of the things I've been very pleased to see is the way the profession has changed in terms of how it treats its staff, how it treats its employees, and how it treats its rising partners. I think there's never been a better time to become an accountant. You're going to get paid more than you've ever gotten paid before. You're going to have be empowered earlier in your career more than you ever have been before. You don't have to wear a suit all the time. You don't have to. There's more flexibility in where and when you work than there ever has been before. There's a million things that make it better to work in accounting firms than it ever has been before. That said, I don't think the profession has gone far enough. I don't think we talked about the pipeline problem. I think one of the big parts of the pipeline problem is, yes, people are getting paid more, but they're getting paid nowhere near enough compared to technology or finance or half a dozen other industries that are attracting the same kind of people, right? The same analytical, thoughtful, methodical people who can understand a spreadsheet, but also think about a business strategically. There's lots and lots of businesses who want them. And who will pay them a lot more, and who will treat them, who will let them work wherever they want, right? Whereas we see the accounting profession is the company that owns accounting today owns a bunch of other B2B publications, all in the sort of financial backbone and infrastructure of the economy kind of space, right? So banking and the bond market and insurance and all those sorts of things. And we do surveys of them in terms of where are your people going to work in terms of a hybrid environment or a remote environment. And accountants are by far the outlier in requiring staff to come back to work. Now, there's plenty of firms that aren't, or they're giving them the option to do where they want. There's plenty of them, don't get me wrong. But there's still something like 50% of accounting firms like, no, we want all our people back in the office all the time. And that's way an outlier in terms of they're more likely to require people to come in, and then they're sort of surprised that it's hard to find staff. This is every newspaper article or magazine article or story on the internet for the past 5 years has said how much people love having flexibility about where and when they work. But still, big parts of the profession are saying, nope, don't care. Come back to the office. Come back to this office. I'm paying for it. I need you here. So that's a little disappointing that it hasn't gone as far as it could have. Though that said, like I said, the profession has advanced enormously since even the late 90s. So that's a plus. So much has changed in the past 5 years over the pandemic in terms of technology adoption. That's been great. That's it's been true for every industry and every profession across the country. But for accountants, it really was, given the speed with which accountants usually adapt or adopt to new technologies, it's been amazing. They've done a fantastic job. So that's been pretty pleasant. And a pleasant surprise. We had a sort of model where for any technology advancement, whether it was the paperless office or moving to the cloud, where we're like, well, we have to tell this story. We'll have to write the stories about how accountants need to move to the cloud or do that. We'll need to write those for anywhere from 5 to 10 years until accountants adopt it. It'll take that long. But so many firms just really turned on a dime at the beginning of the pandemic. It was really impressive. And so we were like, wow, they're adopting things way faster than they ever have. I would say one area that hasn't particularly given the amount of effort that the profession has put into it is diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't think it's advanced anywhere near as much as it needs to, and there's a very strong business case for it, and that's and all kinds of reasons to do it. But we're not seeing the efforts bear fruit. The efforts that have been made are not bearing fruit the way they should, and they're still not being as widespread adopted in a widespread manner as we would like to see. I would say those would probably be the big ones.
Yeah, no, those are great points. I think with the DEI initiative, the AICPA could definitely put a little bit more focus on it. I know they have one, but I think the focus has been so strongly on CAS 2.0 that we really do need to take another look at what can be done there. And then also mental health, I think, is one that maybe hasn't gotten the attention it deserves. When, they say over half of Americans have some kind of mental health disorder at some point in their life. And I guarantee you that's probably a lot more accountants than other people.
Yes. And it's interesting how those numbers get worse between January 20th and April 15th. It's weird. I don't know why all these surveys show a spike in mental health issues between those. It's weird. What could be causing that? Yeah. No, you're absolutely. Yeah, we definitely. And this was another. I don't want to call it a nice part of the pandemic, but an unexpected side benefit of the pandemic, right? Was because people were under such stress, under such pressure, and had so many mental health issues. A lot of firms recognized that and did stuff to help their staff with it. We saw a lot of firms, and this is in all these things, right? It's going to be truer of larger firms. They have more money to spend on this kind of thing, and they have a more professionalized HR function that are able to look at these sort of things. But even so, I think across the profession, people were more attuned to the pressure that everyone was under and starting to recognize that, wow, even though, right, pressure was really unusually high during the pandemic, it's a really ridiculously high pressure profession, even in the best of times.
Right.
And started really recognizing and go, wow, we never really thought about how deeply unhappy we were making so many of our staff. So it's, there needs to be a lot more focus on that. But at least I think people are starting to recognize it as an area that you can focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, did you have a question?
Well, sorry to derail this, but, I had to get this out because I know our time is running down. If you adopt this CAS mentality, this protocol, and business from that starts to flow in, is that cash flow? Sorry.
Bill, you are something else, man.
This the CryptoCannaVerse comedy show?
Someone's got to keep this light.
Exactly. Listen, thank you all for coming. Try the veal. It's fantastic. Bill will be here all week. When I said we were talking earlier before we started, but that Bill got his start in the Borscht Belt. If anybody remembers Dirty Dancing, imagine him as the comic in Dirty Dancing. That was it's brilliant.
Oh yeah! Oh, wow. Okay,
go ahead.
I was going to say somebody needs to put baby in the corner.
Nobody puts baby.
I love it. Yeah. Well, Crystal, I was going to ask him a little bit more about authorship, book writing, if he recommends it to, business owners in general, and maybe kind of what his favorite articles were. But if we have a different direction we want to run, we can do that as well.
No, that sounds good. We have a couple minutes for him to answer that question, and then I would like to start to wrap up.
All right.
Thank you.
Very quickly, I will say that we're seeing a lot more people write. A lot more write all kinds of things, blogs and blog posts. And that's a great way to get sort of thought leadership out there. Writing a book is really hard. Like a full book is really hard. And one of the things, I don't know if you read a lot of business, we get a lot of business books sort of sent to us by publishers, and so we tend to read a lot of them. And one of the things I've noticed is that a lot of I know how hard it is just from personal experience to write a book, but I also know that a lot of business books really should have just been an article, or they're an article that's or 4 articles stapled together. And I'd say that's a great place to start. But writing is not for everybody. That's the other thing I would say, is that it is not for everybody, and that there are a lot of other ways to get your expertise and your voice out there, right? One of the beauties of the internet, right, is video is so easy to do. Not everybody's comfortable with video either, right? Or they're not. Podcasts are another great way to get your voice out, and that's an easier thing, I think, for a lot of people than a video, because there's people get stage fright when they see a camera in front of them. So there's a lot of other ways to get your voice out. So where it used to be, there was just books and articles, and that was all you could do. There's so many other ways to do it that I would say you start with what you're comfortable with. Right? Are you comfortable talking? And even if you're just comfortable talking, there's ways to arrange it, to do it, a format like this. This is a great format, right? It's very easy for anybody to talk in, right? Because you've got a lot of people talking here. It's just a conversation. It's a fun conversation. It's not a sit down interview with 60 minutes and we've dug up your financial records and what's this impropriety. There's no pressure.
Oh, we're getting there next.
I
Don't
assume
worry.
at some point, this will turn into a.
What do you think the last 5 minutes are? Come on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm actually bringing in Keith Morrison from Dateline, and we're gonna have to talk to you again.
Well, no, that's a very dark.
It's a very dark.
I don't mind the financial improprieties, but
We just went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, things got dark fast.
Yeah, this has been awesome. I agree with all of you. It's really nice to have thought leaders that come on the show. It's a great way to take the pressure off of one person and just really share the love and learn from everyone, which is fantastic. I just want to take a second to welcome Michael. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Just got back from surgery. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. So glad that you could make it. Yeah, Michael just went through surgery for, was it skin cancer?
Yeah, I live in South Florida. Everyone has skin cancer. They have drive-through windows here now for skin cancer. So yeah, you can get a Big Mac and a skin cancer Mohs surgery in 10 minutes here. So we're all caught up here.
Good. I hear that they've found it all, which is fantastic. That's good to hear. Do you want to take maybe 1 or 2 minutes to kind of just tell everyone a little bit about what niching down has done for you? And then we're going to close up in prayer and wish everyone a great weekend.
Yeah, Crystal, I had a practice called Fresh Start Tax, and about an odd name, but I guess IRS picked up on it. And at the end of the day, I just decided to go on my own. And what I've learned to do is just broker out the business. I think here in South Florida, there's a lot of businesses here. There's going to be a glut of office space on prime properties over by the beach on the business district, because, the people don't want to come back to work. People are finding firms that they can just work at home. So I think there's been a huge paradigm shift. I know that's an old time word, but a huge paradigm shift into working home. So what I did is just decide to broker my business. As a matter of fact, Clayton over there, just so you guys know, I introduced a Crystal to somebody on this panel. I'm not going to name, but when cases come in, what I do is I just broker them out to different people in my firm. I found that really easy. I actually can stay at home. I've worked at IRS I've been doing this for 51 years, IRS resolution. So it just worked real well for me. It's cut down all the expenses. I built up a huge YouTube station, huge. So anyway, it's worked out well. I think everyone has their own niche here, and everyone knows what they have to do. And I just want to make one comment to everybody. I used to do a lot of blog and had a 10,000 page website. And then what I found out, my son, I'm 70, going on 73. My son told me, hey, Dad, why don't you go on YouTube? And why don't you put your stuff out there? I said, hell, I'm too old. I don't want to do all that crap. Well, anyway, what I found out was this, very interesting. When you go out on YouTube, you don't have to sell yourself because people already know. And I know, Daniel, I don't know you, but I know you're shaking your head. You know exactly what I'm talking. People already know you from YouTube. They don't watch one YouTube. They'll watch 10 YouTubes. They've already made a decision, correct, Daniel, that they already like you. And if they like you, they're going to call you. And your slam rate or your close rate is probably 80 to 90% because they've already made that decision. I don't know if any of you have had that experience. I have about 2,100 YouTubes out. As soon as they call me, they start asking questions. Oh, I know you. So I just want to share that with you. Anyway, I'm not going to waste any of your time. Along the way in my tax practice, I decided to go to seminary. I love the Word of God. I've been teaching biblical studies for 35 years. I don't stop every week. I have about 10 to 12 hours of listening to John MacArthur's sermons. I love MacArthur. He teaches the principles of Christianity, good Reformed Christianity, the way that I've been taught. So what I'd like you to do, first of all, does anyone have a particular need right now you would like me to lift up for? I'm happy to do that right now. Does anybody have a healing need, a child, or any need that you have? I'll be happy to pray for you right now. Anybody?
I have a loved one going through early onset dementia, so would love prayer for that. Thank you.
Well, okay. What's the person's name, Jackie? Is it Jackie? Jackie. What's the person's name?
I'd rather not say, but if you don't mind respecting their privacy, yeah.
We'll call her Connie. How's that?
Okay.
Connie, okay?
Connie,
I don't want her full name and social security number.
I know, but you know, it's a tough situation for her. So
Jackie, a nickname. Okay, we'll pray for anybody else have a prayer request. That's it. Okay, how about let's all bowing our head if you would, and I would appreciate closing your eyes, and if you're able, I'd just like you to just put your palms up wherever you are, lay them on the table, whatever, just in an openness for God, the Holy Spirit, to receive your prayer. Lord, I'm thankful, first of all, for Crystal and this ministry that she has, where she wraps her business and win with Christ. At the end of the day, I've never met anybody in a hospital bed talk about accounting or tax returns or their 401k. The only thing that matters really at that moment is what is their relationship with our Lord. That's the only thing that makes any difference really in our life. So I ask you, Father, as we come before you this day, to forgive us of all our many sins that we have. We understand there is only one Savior of the world, and that is Christ Jesus, who forgives sins, for us to have eternal life. I'm thankful for the men and women here, even though I don't know them, to join Crystal, for Crystal to invite you to me. Just shows a lot about you. I ask you, Lord, to put a hedge of protection around everybody here and their family, and Connie, who has dementia, that we lift up at this time. We ask you to bless their families and their businesses, Father. We ask you to get rid of all the anxieties and fear they have, and know that the Lord stands really in their stead wherever that is. So for all of you, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his countenance and mercy and love always be upon you. May he drip grace upon grace, mercy upon mercy, love upon mercy, until we're all called home. I pray this in the name of Jesus Christ, in the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And all of you, happy Thanksgiving.
Amen. Thank you, everyone,
Thank
for
you.
coming. Appreciate y'all. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.